Hey, welcome back everybody. It's Matthew, Watty's channel. Today we are continuing on with the My Favorite XOX Customs by Random Treasures exclusive action figure tournament. So far I've been able to knock out a couple really good episodes. At least they were really fun for me to film. Hopefully you guys enjoy them as well. So we are going to continue on with, today I'm going to film episodes 3 and 4 of the tournament, and based on the numbers, I'm thinking we'll probably have I'm thinking about 5 videos. I think the last video I'm going to have to add an additional matchup at the end, but that's okay. If it's like 6 or 7 matches at the end, obviously I'll try and split it up, 4 and 3, or I don't know, something like that. But, now a lot of conversation at the beginning of this video. We're pretty much going to dive straight into selecting the figures for this video, and per usual I will pause the video, write the names down for each of the matches, and pull the figures, and we'll get started. Alright, so first figures that we will be competing are Ron Simmons as he does battle against Arn Anderson. So a couple Galoob 2-ups going head to head in the first battle. Next, we're going to feature Lex Luger as he does battle against Afa. Alright, next battle is going to feature Butch Reed, and he squares off against Steve Williams. So far, got a ton of Galoob 2-ups in this video. I was wondering when they were going to make their first presentation in this tournament. The last matchup is going to feature Virgil as he does battle against the Ultimate Warrior. Alright, so we have our 4 matchups for the video. I'm going to pause here and I will be back in a split second. Alright everybody, the figures has been pulled and we are prepared to start the next set of matchups. And the first one we mentioned was from the Galoob 2-ups, Arn Anderson versus Ron Simmons. So we'll kind of start with Arn Anderson. So this is from the original Galoob line. This is a figure I never had as a kid. In fact, the first time I ever saw the Arn Anderson Galoob figure was a couple years ago, when I finally got into collecting and collecting action figures or wrestling figures, etc. Now the pose, obviously having them blown up to twice the size in LJN form as rubber figures, huge help because it gives you more of a playability and kind of more detail to the figure, so that was really awesome. Arn Anderson, not exactly the greatest fighting pose in the world, but when you think about the Galoob line, most of the figures aren't all that special. Maybe I think 3 of them are really like standout figures for me, and the rest are average to below average, with maybe a couple here and there as a little bit above average. But the one thing that I kind of regret about this particular Arn Anderson figure, so when the folks at Random Treasures put the Arn Anderson figure up, they went off of the recommendation of, well, you guys know who, and they ended up coming up with kind of like an old school Arn Anderson with black and gray. I don't remember what this was, if this was like AWA Wrestling or early NWA, I don't know. I don't remember this look myself, and I think I barely, if at all, remember the red and white look. But I kind of, when I buy these figures, majority of the time I buy them based on their stock photo, and this is the original stock photo of how they had Arn Anderson displayed, so that's what I bought. Now if I were to go back and redo it, obviously I would change things up, because this kind of set the tide of how I would progress by choosing my color scheme for future Galoob 2-ups. So because I like the dual colored version from Series 1, I would have kept this as a red and white Arn Anderson as opposed to the black and gray, kind of sticking with the original Galoob line. Now if this was an Arn Anderson that some random customizer made, I would love it. It would be a completely different figure with a completely different paint scheme. Simple enough. But just because it's the first and only Arn Anderson figure I have, obviously knowing that it's supposed to be based on the Galoob from the 1990 Series 1 release, that kind of irked me, and I should have got the original color scheme. Still a decent to above average figure. They even got the bald spot in there beautifully. If you guys actually collect the 1990s Galoobs, Series 1 did have 2 releases of Arn Anderson, one with and one without bald spot. So having that little bald spot in the back, that's kind of nice. Obviously, working under manager Bobby Brain Heenan as part of the Brain Busters tag team in WWF. What was that? 88, 89 time frame. So that's pretty sweet that he does have both that WWF and WCW history under his belt as well. So, like I said, the pose isn't all that special. Arms being where they are, pretty good punch, maybe DDT or something. Not the best clothesline or anything, but when you look at a lot of figures like your Lex Luger and Ron Simmons, etc., I mean, can you really complain about this when you got those figures as part of the line? So, Arn Anderson, probably somewhere, I'd probably put him somewhere top 7, I would say, among the original US release. If you throw in UK exclusives, yeah, that probably pushes him down to like 10 or 12 or something, but overall, quality figure nonetheless. And he squares off against Ron Simmons. So, because I already kind of messed up by going with the stock photo of Arn Anderson when I first got that Galoob 2-up, I decided to kind of keep the trend going and change the color scheme for certain figures here and there. So, where a majority of the Galoob 2-ups are based on your Series 1 US color scheme, because this is no color scheme whatsoever from the Galoob line, when I got the Ron Simmons, and I said I was going to cry if I ever had to pay money on this, because I absolutely despise the Ron Simmons Galoob. It was a figure I had as a kid, and I used it like crazy because I was forced to. Why? Because you don't really have that many options. And I might be exaggerating when I say that I played with it like crazy. I don't think Ron Simmons was like anyone that I kept in like a Rumble match, for a prolonged period of time, because he just simply was not a good figure to use. And I definitely would have never selected him on one-to-one or tag team matches either, because, again, what is this? Why would you do that with an action figure? When I chose the color scheme of this particular figure, I decided to go with the Series 2 UK exclusive. So, much brighter blue pants and the white stripe down the legs. I knew this figure was coming, and if you wanted to have all of the Galoob 2-ups, you knew it was coming, you knew you were going to have to spend the money for it, but man, knowing that you'd have to spend $100 plus, $130 plus, $140, $150 for something like this, it's an absolute killer. But, again, I like the Galoob 2-ups. Getting a line that you had as a kid in LJN form, which has become one of my all-time favorite figures over the last couple years. I don't have as much of a problem paying for this than I would others, and I think for like the Series 2, the first time I ever bought a Series 2 UK exclusive of the original Galoob line, I think I shelled like $125 for that figure. I hated doing it. It's a horrible figure, but I wanted it for the collection. And then, later on, you get that figure for like $60 here, $40 there. It's like, I hated that I forked up that type of money originally. So, Arn Anderson and Ron Simmons. The one thing that Ron Simmons has working for him, as I said, he is a figure I had from childhood. And Arn Anderson, I don't have enough history with the Arn Anderson figure or the character in of itself. Ron Simmons, I kind of classified when I did, I think back in January, I want to say, I did a top 10 my least favorite all-time wrestling figures, and it was from like original San Francisco, from Galoob, Hasbro, etc. Ron Simmons, I think I had on the list at number 2, and I think I had LJN Rick Rude at number 1. Simply put, the way that Rick Rude has his hands in on his side, it made it an impossible playable figure, where Ron Simmons can at least drop an elbow, right? But the way that hand is fixated to the chest, not so much with the LJN 2-ups, but at least with the original line, I kind of see them as like little miniature statues. So maybe for a cheap $5 figure, it's like it is what it is. But for LJN and for really any of the lines, to get a play pose like that is horrendous. Since then, Ram Treasures has come out with like Macho Man with this pose. Why would you do that? I've seen, I don't know if it was Zashman or maybe it was Kevin Pokey over at Print Fury. That may have been who I saw it from. But they've got a Kerry Von Erich version like this. I'm like, you guys are insane. Never in a million years would I recommend this particular type of pose for any action figure ever. And Original San Francisco with their Macho Man figure is like the same thing. And it's with the hands all in on the side. Just terrible figures. Terrible design. With that being said, I think you guys already know that Ron Simmons, no matter who he went against, probably would never have made it out of the first round. So, of course, Arn Anderson is going to defeat Ron Simmons. 10,000 times better figure all around. Maybe if it was Ron Simmons against that particular Macho Man, or Ron Simmons against, like, Ivan Putski or something, they're all bad. Jeez, I don't even know how I would even choose. But going against those two figures are probably the only way Ron Simmons could have possibly made it out of this first round. And even then, that's not even a shoo-in. Ron Simmons, I'm glad to have him because of the other, LJN style Galoob 2-ups, but it doesn't mean I enjoy the figure. And even before the figure was ever made, I knew to expect that sooner or later. So at least I was preparing for that payout. The next matchup is going to feature Lex Luger as he does battle against Sifa. Once again, we will start with Lex Luger. So, because I'd already changed the color scheme on Ron Simmons and gave him that Series 2 UK exclusive color scheme with brighter blue pants and the white line, I decided to keep that trend going with Lex Luger. So, the blue trunks Lex Luger from Series 1, of course I had that figure as a kid. Because that figure, or I'm pretty sure most people are probably going off of that UK or that US Series 1 version with the blue, I just feel like that's going to be so abundant that in the future, if you ever want to buy it and you buy it for cheap, you're going to have more options to buy a blue trunk than a green trunk Lex Luger. And because it's a different color scheme, a little bit different than what I'm accustomed to, of course I decided to go with the UK exclusive color scheme as opposed to Series 1. I still think that Lex Luger Galoob is one of the absolute worst action figures ever created. When you're a kid and you're having to sit there and you're having to pretend to throw a punch, or pretend to kind of do a body slam, that was just so frustrating, so annoying. I never could understand this pose. Now, there are certain figures like King Kong Bundy from LJN. Is it the pose I would prefer on that figure? Absolutely not. But I actually got a lot of enjoyment from the King Kong Bundy, even though he had this pose. Certain figures, certain poses do work. For Lex Luger, even with the hardened rubber, hardened plastic, whatever it's made out of, I never enjoyed that figure, ever. Did I play with it? Of course, I had to. It was necessary. Getting it as a 2-up in the UK colors, that makes it a little bit easier for me to swallow the fact that I paid all that money for the particular figure. And, of course, AFA. just like I mentioned in a previous video with Alpha and Sika, man, I hate having to pay like $400 for like tag teams just because they're tag teams. When I did my first review or first countdown, I think I had like 14 random treasure figures. And then it went up to like, I think 19 figures. And then I did another one for like 25 figures or whatever. Obviously, I've gotten a ton more since, and I haven't really done a countdown since then. But at the 19 figures, I think is when I got the tag team of the Welsh Samoans. And I had them at like 19 and 18. And obviously, I feel like every time you make a new video, a new countdown, there's certain slots that are going to be moved. So these went from like the worst figures from the first 19 figures I had to like, I don't know, 18 or 19 out of like 25. So, they actually shot up as far as how much I valued them. They're good, bulky figures. The pose is not horrendous. So by no stretch are these bad figures. The head molds are solid. Again, I always think of Machete every time I look at this. Danny Trejo is one of my all-time favorite actors, and when I see their faces, that's all I think about. To me, absolutely no chance in heck would Lex Luger defeat Alpha of the Wild Samoans tag team. Is this going to be a third, fourth, fifth round, or however? I don't know how many rounds, with 42 figures, I think it's 43 figures now, because I added that Dino Bravo. That's not going to give me no 5 or 6 rounds. I'll probably give me like 4 rounds or something. 5 rounds total, tops, but is he going to go deep? I mean, third round or later? Probably. With a blind drawing, it's possible. I mean, with the right blind drawing, this figure could have been a third rounder. Imagine if he went against Ivan Putski in round 1 or Ron Simmons in round 2. So, that's something to think about. But Wild Samoan Alpha does defeat Lex Luger. So, keeping the Galoob 2-ups going strong in this video is Butch Reed as he does battle against Dr. Death Steve Williams. Once again, we will start with Butch Reed of the Galoob line. Of the Galoob 2-ups, I absolutely love getting this one in. And I didn't have this figure as a kid. Again, I didn't even know about this figure until I started collecting Galoobs a couple years ago with the rest of the collections. And Sid Vicious, Barry Windham, and then Butch Reed. Literally your top 3 greatest Galoob figures of all time. Why is this one so special? I mean, it's got one of the most perfect fighting poses you will ever see. Butch Reed, I really didn't know anything about Butch Reed as a wrestler. I don't think I even recognized that name. And what was the tag team? Doom? I don't remember Doom or Ron Simmons and Butch Reed together, so that really had no meaning to me either. For me, I love the figure because it's just a positive overall look. With the pants and the gym shoes, a little bit more of a design than you generally get with just regular black boots or trunks or something. And again, I argue one of the greatest fighting poses ever. I don't know if I put it as like a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, or if I give it a 10 out of 10, just like Vicious and Wyndham. I probably would, because all 3 of them are fantastic figures. I absolutely love all of them. And he does battle against Steve Williams, who, when I saw this figure, I'm trying to think, I don't know if this was like a 80s Revolution giveaway contest type of deal. Whenever Jason Nupp has his little giveaway, you go on Etsy, on the XOX Customs page, you buy the figure, your name gets entered for a chance to win a free XOX Customs figure. So when I think of figures like, I think Blanchard Tully was definitely one of them. I think this may have been another, if I'm not mistaken, where you go on, you purchase the figure, and your name gets thrown in. And at some point, I was kind of thinking about, what? I think the only way I'm going to buy a Ram Treasures figure anymore is if it's part of a contest, because the chances that you win are probably less than 5%, but at the same time, you want that opportunity to get a free figure because you don't want to pay $130 odd for a figure that you really don't care about. Steve Williams, I really didn't know about him as a wrestler. A lot of these characters, when I do review videos, I'll go back, I'll do some kind of research, try and give as much in-depth information about a wrestler and their history as possible. But my mind is so shot that I don't retain any of that information. So, is it the worst figure you've ever seen? No. I kind of feel like this might be a mid-card figure among Ram Treasure's roster. So I think that the rubber is a little bit better on this one, and I absolutely love the design of the boots. So there are some positives to take away from the Steve Williams figure. The downside that when I look at this figure, the first thing I noticed when I looked at him, and not only in the face, but even the hand positioning to an extent, he reminded me so much like the LJN Ted Arcidi. And even though he's not an exact replica to Ted Arcidi, it is close enough. And pose is just not good. I absolutely hate when hands are so low. I mean, Arn Anderson's hands are so low, but I mean, at least they kind of tower over a little bit, right? The only thing better about this figure than this figure is Arn Anderson's hands kind of curve downwards, where his is kind of like facing upwards a little bit. So it does kind of give you more of a better uppercut punch type of deal, where this one you're still kind of punching down. Based on the color scheme with the Arn, this is the red and white color scheme I should have gotten with Arn Anderson. I to this day I regret that choice. Do I go with color or do I go with pose? None of these characters, I don't know anything about either one, not really. I didn't grow up, so neither of them really hold any significance in that term. So it's simply going to be based on the figure itself. Even though Steve Williams, to me, might be a mid or lower mid portion. So if there's like 50 figures, let's say he might be, mid being somewhere in like the 20 to 35 range. He might be somewhere a little bit lower, like 38, 40 or something like that. May not be the worst figure ever, but Butch Reed, he is one of those figures I talked about, I think, in the first video when I said that there's probably 6 or maybe 8 figures that I felt like really had a legitimate chance of winning this tournament. Butch Reed is definitely one of those figures that I think could go very far. As long as he faces the right competition in the next couple of videos, yeah, you could see him potentially in the semifinals, even the finals, depending on who his matchup is against. Adequate figure for Steve Williams, but I've always classified him as one of my least favorite among their lot, so mid-tier or not, he's done after round 1. Alright. This last matchup would have been a lot more difficult if they actually did one of these figures right. It's going to be Volume 2, Ultimate Warrior, as he squares off against Virgil. So we'll start with Virgil, and I have no qualms with Virgil being added to the LJN roster. Virgil is actually one of my more favorite characters, and even the design of like his little tuxedo or whatnot is pretty solid. I like the fact that when you look at his color scheme, you see how it shines, that glossiness that you get from Zeus, certain figures like that. I absolutely love that they do that for Virgil. That looks absolutely amazing. But, when you look at figures like Macho Man from Original San Francisco, or Rick Rude from LJN with their hands basically touching their side and whatnot, his hands may not be fused to his body like Ron Simmons or like those other figures I mentioned, but he's basically a standing figure. You could probably call him a referee if you wanted to put a referee in your ring and you didn't have a referee figure. Otherwise, if you were a kid, and I say kid because, again, I think, toys, you think kids, but trust me, there are a million guys I watch online that wrestle action figures, and there's only probably 5 or 6 that I think really do a phenomenal job with it. But the guys I've seen wrestle their matches, they're obviously having a lot of fun, and I'm jealous because I can't do anything like that. He literally would be simply used as a manager because you could not do anything with this figure outside of display. It's a shame. I've been saying that this is like a 5 out of 10 figure for me because the only reason I rate him that high is because of that is the overall look of the figure. Playability absolutely destroys it, and you had such high potential for this figure. Here's the thing. The Ultimate Warrior, I love the figure when I first saw it. My opinion of the figure has actually gone down a lot since my first purchase. I've been bringing it up every time I've ever talked about this figure. I still feel like the original Grand Toys LJN 1989 Series 6 Black Card Ultimate Warrior is a much better figure than what you get from Print Fury and Random Treasures. There are a lot of things about the figure that I do covet. Having these little tassels, I think that is an amazing addition. The hair, I think the hair is more authentic, and I think the face paint might be a little bit better too. Fighting pose, he's just in a Warlord body. So I love the Warlord figure. He's on my top 10 list of best action figures. I don't really have a problem with him being in a Warlord body, but the thing is, when you make the excuse that you make your own rubber and all that, and you keep using the exact same existing body molds, you're not creating your own rubber. You're just switching out heads, and that's it. I still think the original Warlord or the original Ultimate Warrior is much better and has a much better playability to it. People talk about the pink skin on the original Warrior. Okay, but what about this weird colored rubber you get, right? There is a custom Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior figure, Series 1 Hogan, and they put an Ultimate Warrior head on it. You look at that figure and you could never tell that wasn't originally made because it was so well done. The head sculpt was better, and Hulk Hogan fighting pose, even the way that they kind of did the I don't know, they're not tassels. They might be tassels that they put on the boots. That was so much better, well made. But this isn't an Ultimate Warrior tournament or picking the best figure. It's Random Treasures, and even though this may not be a figure that I ever felt like needed to be made, I still think it's got to be probably on your top 3, top 4 list of greatest Random Treasure figures ever. So for this battle, I kind of feel like it's a no-brainer and another simple matchup because there's just no way Virgil could have beat Warrior in this particular matchup. There are a lot of positives. Again, this is still 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I love the Warlord pose. I'll keep saying it, but I want something different, something unique, something original. So that kind of, I think the only thing keeping me from giving it 10 out of 10 is that purpose. But when you want to kind of expand your roster, you want new characters, right? And having a Warrior already created, unnecessary, and money-wise, you would have preferred to purchase the rockers or someone that hadn't been made previously, you know what I mean? Yeah. Well, that is the end of video 3. I'm going to stay down here. I'm going to make another video, and my plan right now is to come down here, make at least 1, if not 2 videos every day. That way I'll still have the videos in queue. Reason being, I want these videos to be posted every single day. I don't want to wait a day or 2 in between videos, or 2 days in between every video. I want to get posted every day, so you guys will be able to enjoy the entire tournament, within a 2-week span or whatnot. Alright guys, that is it for this video. Video 4 is coming out tomorrow, and be on the lookout for that. And until next time guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you in the comments and see you in the next video. Goodbye everybody.